All right. I actually forgot how creepy that intro really is. Um, holy shit, it's been about a year since we've streamed. Good God, time has flown. How's it going, everybody? My name is Matt. I am from the Help for the Guildless Archives, HFPG Archives, and I have been joined by the Vixen of the Vox, the what are your other names? The voice of your library,
Basically.
the wonderful and lovely Ishtar.
Hi. Missed you guys.
It's been a while since we've done some of this, and I asked in my Discord if you guys would like to have a stream or a video of the story I'm actually writing, which is the Paranormal Northwest Archives, the PNWA. Um,
Pinwa.
Pinwa,
Pinwa.
you can barely hear us. I will turn us up. Like I said, it's been a while. Like I'm using a setting, stream setting that I haven't used except for once. I hope that's better. So I am going to be reading directly from the story that I've been writing, and I want you guys to know that this is a work in progress. I will attempt to do voices, but I don't think I'm going to, unless, like, well, maybe. Do you have Do you want me to send you this so you can read your lines and maybe someone else's?
Sure. If you want me to voice act, I can do that.
Well, I mean, you are in this.
Yeah. I just didn't think you wanted me to be acting. I'm on the couch. I'm not with my good microphone.
Did you want to go do that? You don't have to. Like, I can just read this through.
I'm fine reading it. It's just my good microphone does not support streaming because my tiny laptop it's hooked up to does not support streaming. So if you want to send it to me, send it to me.
All right.
Or print it out for me and I'll read it.
Uh, how many chapters do we want to do?
Well, you don't want to do the whole thing.
No. You want to do like 3?
Three's a good chapters.
All right. Let me see what pages I need to print out. We're so professional right now. I mean, just
We're a little rusty. Give us a break.
so print out 1 through.
How you been?
1 through 20.
Sparky is drunk stream sniping us.
All right, I'm okay with that.
He's making fun of us. You know that, right?
That's fine. You can make fun of us. All right, so all right. Gonna take a little bit. I also have to reload the paper thing. it is printing. Apparently Sparky has WD-40. How's it going, Tom? Yes, we are alive. Give us just a second. We are getting things set up so we can get Ishtar to read some lines. So I guess, I should set this up a little bit. So, for those of you who don't know, who didn't pay attention to the videos that I was doing up in a year ago, I was creating a story, creating a world, kind of doing this half meta, half not meta narrative of a story. And I wasn't getting much traction with that, which is fine. I was trying to create a brand new audience. So I took that idea and I decided to, expand upon it and see how things go. So I am currently in the middle of writing chapter 8. We are not reading up to chapter 8. And we're just going to read 3 chapters and we'll go from there. I don't care about having lasers or laser printers. I got whatever printer we have. Funny story about the printer, it hates Ishtar. Hates her to death.
Really does. Will not print for me. Not at all. I had to get like a cheap little USB plug-in one from Amazon to print stuff.
Well, it's almost done printing. So, this is a story that has, what would you call it? Horror adventure?
I wouldn't call it horror. I would call it a paranormal adventure.
Paranormal adventure. So, it's a paranormal adventure story. It is told in first-person perspective. And it is told from 2 different people's perspectives. You won't get the second person's perspective until after chapter 6. And we're not getting there yet, so that's just something y'all are going to have to worry, deal with. You have 4 printers? You do not need more printers.
Why do you have 4 printers?
Do you want to come get the pages? Since you're mobile.
Making me do all the work.
Yes, I am.
Just for that, I'm getting some M&Ms before I sit back down.
Oh no, not M&Ms. Whatever will we do with you eating M&Ms?
Enjoy the crunching in your ears.
Alright, so like I said, this is a story that I have written myself. I am open to critique and criticism if it is honest critique and criticism. If you're just going to be a dick about it, I'm going to ignore you. And I'm not talking about the people in chat. I am talking about the people who may listen to this later. So...
No, it goes for the people in chat, too. If you guys are going to be assholes about it, shut up. Just enjoy the story.
So, as I said, do you have your M&Ms?
I'm working on it. I'll open the bag.
Well, it'll take a while to get to your lines. So, I'm going to go ahead and give us a start here. This is...
They're purple and green. Why are they purple and green?
Because whammon.
Stupid. Go.
Okay. So, this is the Paranormal Northwest Archives Wanted, Dead or Alive. By me. Forward. Hello? Am I coming in clear? I hope this thing is actually recording. My friend assures me that it is, but from where we are, you can't ever be too sure. Listen, I know you may think this is weird. I'm talking directly to you. But to be honest, this is for anyone who finds it. I don't know how you I don't know how you came across it or how you got it to play, but my name is Matthew Van Hove, and I need you to listen carefully. Have you ever heard of a company named Bloodclaw Industries? If you said yes, then you know all you need to know. And by listening to this, you've probably already been marked, and for that, I'm sorry. If you haven't, if that company doesn't even seem real, you are the person I need to talk to. Because that means I was able to get this into the right hands. Now, before I go too far, I have to warn you. I'm going to be telling you things that you are not going to believe. Hell, I'm not sure I actually believe this stuff myself, and I've been living through it. Do you know what a cryptid is? If you don't worry. It's just a fancy name for a creature that science can't explain or doesn't have proof that it exists. I'm going to mute you because you're crunching. You're still crunching. I don't care. You may not believe it. You may not believe in things like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. And to be fair, up until all this happened, I didn't either. Ghosts, ghouls, poltergeists, cryptids, every single one of them is real in some aspect or another. Along with all that stuff, and I know you are probably rolling your eyes right now, there is even more. After you hear this story, all I need you to do is find Ishtar. She's actually my wife and will know exactly how to help me out of this. At least I hope. One more thing. If you think you're being followed, you probably are. Don't panic. Most of the time they're friendly. The other times, I would suggest running. You'll know which is which. Now, where do I start with all this? Oh, I know. I'll start at the beginning. No, not the beginning of my life. That's a bit cliche. No, I need to start when I met one of my best friends. I have to start with how I met Antoine and how the PNW archives started. Chapter 1. Dark Places. How do I get myself into these things? I hate dark places. I hate spooky hallways. I hate creepy buildings. And most of all, I absolutely hate being scared. Yet here I was, once again, holding onto a flashlight with a GoPro strapped to my head and following the back of my wife's head. A supposedly haunted hospital in the last place I wanted to be. The things we do for love. I could see the dust all over the broken shelves and gurneys. It was at least an inch thick and didn't look like it had been disturbed by anything in the last decade. As I walked behind Ishtar, I could see hallways branching off from the one we were currently in. I turned my flashlight down each one as we passed, and saw that the beam of light made little difference in breaking up the void of nothing and blackness. I could feel the moment that I was done with all of this. I stepped past another corridor that was filled with broken equipment and collapsed ceiling tiles when I swore I saw something move. I stopped and pushed my flashlight out in front of me and was desperate for the light to show me that my eyes were just playing tricks on me because I was tired. James, my oldest and best friend, only joined this little group because he was bored. I honestly don't know how. The man works 2 jobs and is my age. All light brown hair and almost perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. He had what you would call a dad bod without the dad part. Then there was Stephanie, my wife's little sister, who was nicknamed Tiny but Vicious, and matched that moniker to perfection. Stood all of 5 feet and some inches. That didn't stop her, though. She gave as good as she got, and the fact that she had long blonde hair and quick wit usually threw anyone for a loop. The 2 of them were on the other side of the hospital doing their own investigation, so I knew it couldn't be them. I looked towards the direction that Ish had continued walking and called out to her. "Hey!" I hissed, not wanting to speak too much louder just in case there was actually something down the hallway. I think I actually saw something move. I heard her stop, and then I heard footsteps coming back towards me. I gave a sigh of relief as I saw her fire-red hair come into focus. Even in the dim light that our flashlights gave off, I could still see her bright, vibrant hair that matched her personality. She looked thrilled that I could have possibly seen something. I could see her eyes widen in surprise, and her lips broke into an excited smile. She was loving this. Of course she was loving this. It was her idea. She and her sister used to watch those ghost hunting shows when they were younger. You know the ones I'm talking about. The ones that have two main hosts and they are way too excited about being in a haunted building. They lock themselves in at night and set up cameras and microphones, have infrared cameras, spirit boxes, Ouija boards, and sometimes they have a quote-unquote expert that has a degree in demonology or something. Yeah, those shows. Hey, that's what we were doing now, with less equipment. Mainly because we decided to do this last minute and we're actually trespassing.
Did you unmute me?
Yes.
What? What did you see?
Ishtar asked me, unable to hide her enthusiasm. I swear I saw something walking down the hallway as I passed. I saw it move as I moved my light down the hall.
Let's check it out.
She nearly cheered. How can you be this excited? Horror movies start this way. I knew my complaint wouldn't deter her.
Oh, stop. Those are just movies. Come on.
I watched once again as my wife took the lead down a hallway that looked like it was ready to collapse any second. There was so much garbage and junk on the floor that it started to become a chore to actually walk past it. Luckily, and I use the word very loosely, there were rooms on either side of this hallway. My guess is that they were patient rooms instead of doctor's offices. The doctor's offices we had just seen on the other side of the hospital. I was pretty sure we were in the emergency area. The doorways seemed to be clear enough of debris for us to maneuver around the piles of tetanus and dust. You would think, with my extensive knowledge of horror and slasher movies, that I wouldn't get distracted by a noise. Not a loud noise like a closing of a door or a clear footstep. No. It was a soft noise, like the sound of someone breathing. I stopped dead in my tracks and felt the shiver climb from the base of my spine all the way to the base of my skull. I felt every single hair stand on end one by one, and the lump in my throat was threatening to leap out past my teeth if I so much as opened my lips to breathe. My heart pounded in my chest, and my fight or flight was screaming at me strongly to consider the latter. Now, I don't want you getting the idea that I'm a coward. I'm not. It was just at that moment I felt like I should have had a talking dog and be craving puppy snacks. I could feel my hands shaking as I turned the flashlight into the room, and I was praying to whatever deity was listening that I wouldn't find anything, and it was just wind. Scanning the room, I saw the remains of a patient bed, 2 broken cabinets, a sink, and a face looking back at me. What? I moved my light back to where I saw the face, ready to scream like a bitch, but didn't see anything. That was impossible, right? It had to be a shadows or something that my light bounced off of to make it look like a face. Instead of stepping back into the hallway and grabbing Ishtar by the hand and dragging her out of that place, I instead did the stupid thing and stepped inside without saying anything. Classic horror movie mistake. I was good as dead. My hand reached out to the wall and found the light switch. Now, I know logically that there was no possible way that there was any power running through this old busted out building, but it was like habit. I clicked the switch expecting to see light come on so I could verify that there was nothing in the room but old equipment and garbage. 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks. It finally dawned on me what I was actually doing and I cursed under my breath. Matt, you are an idiot. The place has been without power for years, and here you are flipping a switch like a dumbass. Get your head on right. I looked behind me to see Ishtar's light moving in the distance and was more than glad than ever she hadn't been close enough to see what I had done. I looked back into the room and instantly screamed and tumbled backwards. Ishtar rushed back to see if I was alright and found me rubbing my back and my flashlight spinning in a circle just inside the room.
You okay? What happened?
She asked me, concerned. Oh, it was nothing, I sighed, heaving myself up onto my feet again. I just scared the crap out of myself by shining a light on my own reflection in the window.
Are you hurt?
She asked, trying to hold back a laugh. Just my pride, I said as I leaned down and picked up the flashlight. She laughed. It was one of my favorite sounds. Her laugh was music in the dark, and I couldn't help but laugh myself. I checked the GoPro to make sure it was still in place and then moved into the hallways again. This place seems dead. It's all just creepy hallways and paranoia. Can we call it a night? I asked, hoping that she would understand that I really wanted to go.
Come on.
She pouted.
It's not even 3 a.m. yet. That's when the fun is really supposed to start.
I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It was only 1 o'clock in the morning. All right, 2 more hours, then we're out of here. She let out a small squeal of glee and then kissed me quickly.
Thank you. 2 more hours, I promise. This is so much fun.
My wife had a very strange idea of fun. My idea
I
of
really
fun.
do.
My idea of fun didn't include hallways that were filled with broken chairs, spiders, rats, and asbestos. Then again, I was a simple man with simple needs. Ishtar headed back down the hallway, and I followed behind her a little more closely this time. I wasn't going to let any more noises distract me. As I made my way deeper into the emergency wing of the hospital, I made a mental note of the surroundings I could make out. Nurse's station, busted medicine cases, turned over chair, mold-covered mattress, wheelchair moving on its own. I stopped again and this time grabbed my wife's hand. It moved. She looked to where my light was pointed and saw the rusted wheelchair sitting in the middle of the open space completely still.
It's a wheelchair. We've passed by like 100 of them.
Yeah, I said, moving a little closer to it. But that one was moving on its own.
It was not.
She sounded thrilled. I looked right at it as it moved, babe. Why would I lie?
To get my hopes up, I want to catch something spooky on camera. We can put it up on the channel and show everyone what we captured.
She was talking about her streaming channel. Ishtar isn't actually my wife's real name. It's the name she's known by her subscribers. We were recording all this to put on her channel for content and to have a little fun. Ishtar wasn't huge. She didn't have millions of followers, but she did have a good amount. Before tonight, she had about 20,000. After this, if we caught anything spooky or creepy, it could skyrocket. Ghost hunting apparently had become a big thing, and now we were following the trend. It was a bonus for her that it was something she wanted to do anyway. Don't worry, I'll make sure all the good stuff shows up. I was her editor and her non-live stream I was her editor for her non-live streamed content, which meant that I was going to have all the fun of combing through all the footage to try and find anything. I just hoped my GoPro had caught the chair moving.
I know you will, because you're awesome, and that's why I love you.
She kissed the tip of my nose and then turned back around to keep exploring. I looked around the area again and scanned it with my flashlight. Thankfully, nothing else decided to move on its own, as I did. I really wished I could say that the rest of the 2 hours were filled with us chasing noises, seeing shadows move, and equipment floating off the ground. But I'd be lying to you, and I promised myself that when I started telling this story to whomever was listening to it, that I would tell the truth and nothing but. Regardless as how strange it is. We called it about 3:15 in the morning. We were all tired, and I needed some form of sleep before I scanned through the footage. We all made our way out to the hospital the same way we got in, and once outside we started talking about all the things that had or had not happened. Ishtar couldn't help but tell Stephanie and James about my horrifying encounter with my own reflection. Needless to say, everyone had a good laugh, me included. Though on the way home, James and Stephanie both started talking about how creepy the whole place felt. Not just the standard creepy either. They said that it felt like they were being watched. I'll admit that feelings like that weren't uncommon when exploring these old buildings. We hadn't done this too often, maybe 2 or 3 times before this, and each time I got the same feeling. I wouldn't worry too much, man. All these old places make people feel that way, I tried to assure him. No, I know that. This time felt different, though, James said from the back seat. I felt him scoot forward. I mean, the last house we were at was supposed to be haunted by like an evil, malevolent spirits, right? This place, though, I know I heard footsteps. Out of the four of us, James was the more excitable of us. He wanted to believe every noise was a poltergeist or every curtain that was moved by the wind was a ghost coming to say hello. It was admirable in an X-Files I want to believe sort of way. It reminded me a lot of the day I asked him if he wanted to join us for a trip to an abandoned schoolhouse for the first time. His eyes got real wide and laughed, saying, "You can't be serious." I told him bluntly that we were, and he was invited. He went from skeptical to excited in seconds.
You heard footsteps.
Ishtar asked skeptically. Yeah, when we were near the cafeteria. Clear as day. Great. I was now going to have to tediously scan through the footage he got with the volume up as high as possible to hear these footsteps. All the while, I needed to focus on the video in order to see if I could debunk it somehow. Maybe Stephanie took a few loud steps, or maybe it was a rat. I know it sounds like I'm complaining a bit about the whole editing thing. To be fair, doing this for my wife isn't as bad as I make it sound. It's just extremely time-consuming, and because of our normal jobs, I normally don't get to do the editing until it's dark. Guess what gets creepier when you're doing it at night when everything is quiet in the house? If you guessed looking at GoPro footage of a haunted house, give yourself a gold star. You said that before, and it was your own steps echoing. I reminded him of the last time he got all excited about it.
He's telling the truth, though.
Stephanie chimed in from behind Ishtar.
I heard them too. We spent a good 30 minutes trying to recreate it, and it couldn't. It sounded like someone was walking toward us, then just stopped. Awesome!
Ishtar cheered.
Finally, something cool to show the fans.
I spent the rest of the trip home asking more details and trying and gauge what time they heard the noise so I could narrow down on the footage where to look. From what it sounded like, it was just after I had my experience in the room that I thought I saw a face. The one that wasn't my own reflection. I didn't know if the events were a coincidence or not, but I was going to have to rewatch things before I made that judgment. Excuse me. It wasn't too long of a trip, maybe an hour or so. But during that time, both Stephanie and James kept bringing up how they felt like eyes were on them as soon as they split off from us. I asked Ish if she felt the same way, and she couldn't say if she did or not.
It's not. I heard that you two get to hear noises and stuff. All we got was my knight in shining armor screaming at his own reflection. I mean, if I saw that reflection, I'd be terrified too.
My wonderful sister-in-law added with a smile. Hey, I snapped. I was only terrified by how good it looked. Good for a corpse, James added, and then had to duck me swatting at his arm.
So when is our next adventure?
Steph asked as she grabbed her gear from the trunk. I used the term gear lightly. It was a camera, comfortable shoes, portable battery charger, and a jacket. We weren't what you would call, quote unquote, well stocked on ghost hunting equipment yet. I honestly wish things were that simple again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It will be it will be after I get this stuff looked through and edited. Plus, I have an infrared camera coming and some stands for stationary cameras, I said, grabbing the rest of our stuff.
This group needs a name, like the ghost hunters.
Ishtar said as she closed the trunk. Don't make it something cheesy. I won't be part of cheesy, I said with an
Yes, you will.
exasperated sigh. Do we want it to kind of represent what we do? James asked. Probably, I responded.
Ooh, ooh, I got it.
Ishtar was beaming. I love my wife, but she loves wordplay and puns, so I was sure this was going to be a groan-worthy name. What?
The Pinwa.
What's that mean? James asked
The
before I
par
could.
the Paranormal Northwest Archives. It's a play on the Pacific Northwest. It's perfect since we travel around here to find stuff and record it, like an archive.
She looked really proud of coming up with that so quickly. Guess we got a name now. And that was how all this really started.
Tom Leach, there is so much sass in my family. Like, you have no clue.
It's, I mean, it get all four of the sisters together with the brothers-in-law and the new boyfriend from Stephanie, and the sass is off the charts. Like,
Oh,
sarcasm
yeah.
becomes a normal language that we're not sure if anybody's really being sarcastic or not. So, who's all here?
It's how you know we like you.
So, late hellos. Again, how's it going, Dark? Tom, hello. Hello, Siri. How's it going, Steve?
Tom, tell Siri that it's going to be okay. I have been through hurricanes. At the most, by the time it reaches California, it's going to be a tropical storm. It's going to get windy, it's going to get rainy, but she'll be fine.
Dark says, ghost facers. They hunt the ghosts where others will not. Ghost facers.
No.
No. Alright. So that was the end of chapter 1. Now, we are on to chapter 2. Chapter 2. Whatever it takes. Excuse me. It took me a good week to look through the hours of footage we had acquired, and my eyes and ears were getting very tired from straining to see anything. I know what you're thinking. It shouldn't be too hard. Headphones and a large HD monitor should make things a piece of cake. Normally you'd be right, and believe me, I appreciate the suggestion. But it was and is something I had already thought of. It wasn't that doing it was hard. It was going over every second of footage, looking for anomalies frame by frame, and then, after doing that, going through the audio to try and find even more anomalies. It is not only boring, but it also feels like I'm eavesdropping on conversations that everyone had. You get used to it eventually, but there is something about listening to your sister-in-law and best friend talking about you that is just off-putting. Very rarely have they said anything bad about me, but there are times that you forget you're being recorded and things slip out. Nothing too hurtful has been said yet, but that didn't mean it wasn't weird. I was going through my own footage for what felt like the 100th time, and I got to my own personal jump scare. I grabbed a can of soda and cracked it open as I started to walk into the room and nearly dropped the drink. No way. There was no way I saw that. I rewound the tape and played the moment I walked back inside the room again and swept my flashlight through the room. I had already figured out that the face I saw was nothing more than a bunch of towels on the broken counter that cast a weird shadow. But what I was trying to catch again wasn't something that could possibly be made by a shadow. I slowed the video to almost a frame per second, and as my light touched the far left wall, and started to move back and started to move back, there was a figure. I don't mean a shadow. I mean an actual person. I could see the hair, shoulders, and glowing eyes. I rewound it again and played it at normal speed. In the footage, my flashlight moved to the left through the room and then back to the right, which led to me screaming at my own reflection and falling backward. My light touched the person for a split second, but I saw it. I played it again to make sure I was really seeing it, and sure enough, he or she was still there. I watched a little longer to make sure the figure didn't leave or run out through the door somehow, and as I floundered a bit on my back from the fall, there was no sign of them leaving the room. I pulled up the footage that Ishtar gave me and fast-forwarded to when she came running to help me. I was praying that I remembered correctly that she looked in the room. She did. It was only briefly, but she looked in and looked right at the corner. I was hoping to get a better image of the thing for the thumbnail of the video I was going to put up, but it was gone. I don't mean it was gone from the corner and it was in a different part of the room. I mean it was completely gone. The corner she looked at was bare. Pulling up the video from my camera again, I put it up full screen on one monitor and then pulled up Ishtar's footage on the second screen. I timed them both to the same few seconds of looking at the corner and hit play on both. Looking at both videos at the same time sent a chill up my spine. In my video, that thing was there, but a minute later, it was gone from the proof of Ishtar's GoPro footage. Nothing had passed by me, nothing had exited, no sounds of a window opening. There was nothing to indicate that the shadow had exited the room. What was weird was that I didn't see those glowing eyes. How could I miss them? They were yellow. The footage showed just a quick flash of yellow, or maybe copper against my flashlight, but it was definitely a yellow. To say I was excited was an understatement. I wanted to go grab Ishtar and show her right away, but I couldn't. While I would edit, Ishtar would usually be streaming some game or doing some craft online for her subscribers. So I didn't want to interrupt. Besides, I could show her after she was done. Instead, I took the time to go to the video that James and Steph had given me and sped to the moment that they heard footsteps. I had watched it a few times already, and I figured I would use them trying to debunk the noise as part of the final video for our adventure. This time, however, I was looking for the source of the sound in the video. Excitement coursed through me like a jolt of electricity as I scoured the videos. But even with going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. The noise was definitely footsteps. Clear as a bell, actually, which is why I know James and Stephanie had tried to debunk them. There was no movement which made me a little frustrated, but it was something I could work with. There were a ton of orbs throughout all of the videos we captured, but I never really count those. Orbs are anomalies that show up on video that a lot of people claim are manifestations of spirits. I'm not those people. In fact, I don't believe that the orbs are really anything. Maybe in some very rare cases an orb appears before a legitimate paranormal event, but most of the time orbs are simply explained by being dust particles or bugs. You can watch these paranormal videos and they go crazy over catching orb activity, and all they do is fall at a weird angle or flutter around. It's nothing to write home about. I had all the things I needed to show Ishtar after she was done, so I was cleaning things up when she came in with a look on her face that told me, I'm hungry. I know that look well.
Shut up.
Don't tell me. We don't have what you're looking for in the fridge.
How did you know?
She asked, standing in the doorway of my office with a hand on her hip. Because you only ever come in here during your streams when you can't find what you want.
That's only half true.
She smiled. What do you want? I can go pick it up. I think this store is still open for a little longer. I asked, starting to pull on a jacket. I moved past her to grab my car keys, and I happened to glance at the time on the microwave. It was after 9, which meant the store was open for exactly 45 more minutes. You know what? Just text me on the way. If I don't get there soon enough, I won't be able to grab it. Ishtar smiled and came up to me and pressed her forehead to mine, and then kissed me quickly before heading back into her office.
You know what I like?
She called back at me, and then I heard her door close. I let out a sigh and headed to the car. Yeah, I knew what she liked, but I didn't know what she wanted at the moment. It could be anything from cookie dough ice cream to pizza rolls. I guess I'd just have to look for a couple of things and see what tickled her fancy.
This is actually how things work in real life.
Not wrong.
No.
Needless to say, I did not make it to the store on time. I tried to, but it seemed like the fates were against me at that present moment. There was an accident on the main road that was bad enough to shut it down, which sent all the traffic to the side of the road that I normally took. I pulled into the parking lot a full 10 minutes after they had closed in a futile hope that they were going to stay open just for little old me. No such luck. With that option, with that option done, that meant one thing, and that was one of the only fast food restaurants that were open late and or all night long. Taco Bell, or every streamer's and stoner's favorite late night munchie run, Jack in the Box. I knew exactly the type of grub Ishtar loved to snack on while she was streaming from the big-headed mascot's drive-thru, so I headed out of the parking lot and onto the road to head a full 10 minutes out of the way to get to the closest one. It wasn't normally a problem. It really wasn't that far from the house. But with the accident sending me backward and then the store being closed, I had been gone a good 30 minutes. Ishtar would be hangry by the time I got back. I just hope whomever she was playing against or with hadn't suffered the brunt of her ire.
I do get hangry.
You do. I hadn't made it more than 2 steps into the house carrying food when I heard her office door open and her walking out. Sorry, babe. There was an accident, so I had to go someplace else. But I got you a chicken sandwich with cheese and a shake,
You are the best. I'm starving. I thought you might have forgotten about me.
she said with a smile. Now that's impossible. I just hope you didn't take it out on Steph, I said, knowing full well that Ish and her sister streamed together quite often.
No way.
She grabbed the food out of my hand and headed straight to the kitchen.
I'm done for the night anyway. Mining was done, crafting was accomplished, and my farm is looking great. We were going to play Raft or something like Don't Starve, but we decided on something a bit more chill.
She had her food on a plate and was sitting at the island before I could even get my own plate. Well, that's good. You always enjoy just setting your mind to a build and getting it done.
While we were playing, we started talking about the hospital and all the weird noises we heard. The chat was asking us all sorts of questions and even started to demand I crack the whip on you to get the videos out like tomorrow. I told them it's worth the wait and you'll get them out soon.
I shook my head as I munched on my own late night burger and laughed. She went on to tell me how there were questions about what they saw or didn't see, if they saw any doors opening or closing on their own, if they saw any ghosts, and all sorts of questions that involved the paranormal investigation. She ended up telling her viewers how we decided on a name for our little group, and they seemed to be accepting of it, which was good because I thought it was catchy. Ishtar was excited about the whole night's stream, and as she started in on her fries, I took it upon myself to tell her that I had things to show her in the videos. Things I couldn't explain that I thought her subscribers would freak out about. When I told her about the shadow figure, she freaked and then did a little happy dance in her seat. It was the first time we had caught anything like that on camera. Then I told her I did everything I could to try and find the source of the footsteps that James and Stephanie heard and couldn't find anything. She burst out with,
I knew that place was haunted.
I asked her if she wanted to see it and she told me plainly that she would wait for the video.
Oh,
She said as she tried to get even a small bit of shake through a straw.
Steph and I got a tip on the next location. Well, I mean, I did. And then told her about it, and she is already down.
Already?
Yeah. Creed 2045, the guy that gave us the idea to start doing this paranormal stuff, he told us about this abandoned tech warehouse that he swears is haunted.
I looked at her with a disbelieving look. Creed 2045 was a recent subscriber, and he talked to Ishtar a lot. I honestly thought the man had a huge crush and was doing this to get more of my wife's attention, so I always took what he said with a pinch of salt.
Oh, come on. He's into this paranormal stuff too. That's all it is.
She said reassuringly. I believe you, but come on. A tech warehouse? Those things just don't get abandoned. They get shut down and cleaned out.
Maybe. But he said that the place closed down under really weird circumstances. Like one day they were working, and the next the place was just empty.
She said as she pushed one of her fries through the ketchup. Where is it? I haven't heard of anything like that happening around here. Something like that would make news up here because of all the tech HQs up here.
Creed says it's in Montana.
She said quickly, ate the fry, and then went for another. Montana? There was nothing in Montana that I could think of that had to do with anything technology related. Where in Montana was the next question I had, because that particular state was filled with nothing but empty space, snow, and angry giant moose.
No, that's Canada. Just a few miles outside of Billings. I told Creed that we'd have to save up for a bit before we even thought about going out there. Steph and I started talking about how much it would cost and what we'd need, and the chat was pretty helpful. Talked about cameras and stuff, and then transportation and renting an RV and food, stuff like that.
I looked at Ishtar in shock, and apparently it was funny enough to make her laugh.
Infrared cameras, spirit boxes, stationary cameras, external battery packs, extra SD cards, food, gas, plane tickets, RV, and all that will be really costly. It would take at least a couple of months to save up. At least that's what Steph and I figured.
She was smiling, and she seemed set on doing this. I didn't have the heart to tell her no. How far outside Billings is it that we need an RV? I asked, resigning myself to agreeing to this crazy idea.
About 100 miles or so.
You know, soda really helps clear out your sinuses when you inhale it, but the choking that comes afterwards is not fun at all. 100 miles?
Yeah. According to Creed, it's about 100 miles outside Billings and north of Big Timber. It's near this mountain range called Crazy Peak.
Crazy Peak. That's not a real thing, I said flatly.
It is. We looked it up.
Okay. Okay. Let's say we get all the equipment you want. And let's say we're crazy enough to fly into Billings or Helena or wherever. You are saying you want to travel by RV to a mountain range called Crazy Peak in search of a tech research facility that may or may not exist or even be haunted just for content for your channel? I asked incredulously.
Yes.
She answered simply with a wide smile. I blew out a long, slow breath and looked hard at this woman I married. Till death do us part was starting to take on a more serious connotation at this moment.
Meh.
All right. If we can save up the money for everything and James and Steph agree to take the time off for it, sure. We'll go out to this abandoned warehouse. I was confident that not only would it take way longer to gather the funds than 2 months, but by the time we did, Ishtar would have forgotten all about the trip. How wrong I was.
Excellent. I'll start planning the trip. You do the research, and we can get out there in like a week or so.
I stared at the love of my life as if she had two heads. I was waiting for the punchline of a joke that I apparently didn't get.
Creed got the chat all hyped for this investigation and talking about how it was going to be the first big ghost hunt for the Pinwa, that there ended up being a huge donation tray.
Oh no.
So after we listed off all that we thought we needed, the donations started coming in. It was slow at first, but after the first few, they really started getting up there.
Nope, I was not going to be going to Montana. She couldn't have raised everything already. That was at least a couple of grand, if not more. Your viewers were great, friendly, and they loved everything Ishtar did, but they weren't really known for their generosity.
Then, after the donations and tips stopped coming in, Do- Creed donated $3,000.
Ishtar was practically beside herself with excitement. I, on the other hand, realized that we would be going on this trip sooner rather than later. You realize that it takes like a month for that stuff to clear, right? We can't go until it does. Ishtar frowned. I hate it when she pouted. I hated it when she pouted. It was my one and only weakness when it came to my wife, and she knew it.
Please, baby. We have the money now. We can afford it. And then when the money comes from the donations, and then when the money from the donations and tips comes in, it will refill our savings. This is going to be fun. I just know it.
End of chapter 2.
You really are a sucker for me.
I am.
Mm-hmm. I am the most spoiled person in existence,
Well, at
and I
least,
know it.
I was going to say, at least you admit it. Um,
Oh, I brag about it. I don't know what you're complaining about.
so for you guys that are listening, I would love to. We got one more chapter we're going to read, but I want to know what you guys think. So leave it in the comments, not in the comments of the stream, but like after it's done, put it in the comments of the video. And if you could, like, spread it out to people and see if this is something they want to listen to. I have a few test readers that seem to really be enjoying it. One of them being James himself, and he is tickled pink for the fact that he is in a story. Um, but I would love for you guys to kind of help me out here. And as I'm reading this, there are some things that I'm seeing that I need to go through and fix. So this is helping. So, chapter 3, First Day Out. Do you want to know what really sucks? A layover that sees you hanging out at an airport for long enough that you feel like you should start looking for a job. The four of us were only flying from SeaTac Airport to Billings Logan International Airport, but apparently fate deemed it apropos to stick us in Salt Lake City for a short stop. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. Normally. What's not normal was Salt Lake City experiencing the largest thunderstorm they had ever had in the past 30 years. It was horrible. Flights with every airline were delayed, from American to Southwest. Not a single flight was leaving on time. Other flights were being redirected to other airports, and people were scrambling for vouchers for local hotels so they wouldn't have to spend the night in the airport. Guess what small ghost hunting group didn't get a hotel? It really wasn't all that bad. I never knew you could fall asleep on a bench and wake up 2 hours later with your hair stuck to the seat by gum and have your pants belt loop get hooked by the armrest so when you got up to get your head snapped back and your pants rip at the seam. Like I said, I didn't know that before. I know that now because I watched it happen to Stephanie after the excitement of the janitor emptying trash drained all of her energy. We needed to buy new pants at one of the shops, and that only made her mood soar.
$40 for jeans.
She grumped at Ishtar and I after she had changed and salvaged her hair from the gum.
Ugh, that's harsh.
Ish said sympathetically. Duty-free shops were notorious for being overpriced. I never understood why. Maybe it was like movie theaters or something. Hey, I said with a chuckle, we only have 8 more hours to wait, and then we get to hop onto an overly packed flight to Billings. The look I got could have melted a steel door. I took that as a sign that it was time for me to take a walk to see what I could find to occupy myself until Steph had calmed down. I honestly couldn't blame her. This whole thing sucked. It's not like we were stuck in the Vegas airport. At least then, I could busy myself with some slot machines and possibly pass the time by losing a ton of money. I made my way through the terminals and suddenly realized just how empty the place was. Sure, a ton of people have been able to grab vouchers for hotels. Others probably went back home or a friend's place. I bet there were even people who were hanging out at all-night diners. And yet we decided to stay here just in case the storm passed sooner than 6 in the morning like the geniuses we are. The airport was seriously creepy at this time of night. Not many employees, even fewer travelers. Stores were dark, no restaurants or cubicles open except for the general store types. The whole thing felt like a scene out of a Final Destination movie. As I made my way past the second set of bathrooms, something caught my attention. It wasn't something obvious, like a security guard running after someone. It was more subtle, like a feeling that I wasn't supposed to be there. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. I stopped to look around, and in the silence I heard something. I couldn't really hear it clearly, but it sounded like someone was laughing. Not like they were laughing at something funny. It was more like someone just laughing at nothing to amuse themselves. I wish I could explain it better, but it was just a laugh, and as soon as I heard it, the sound vanished. "What are you staring at?" James asked. Apparently he had come looking for me. I'm not afraid to admit it. I screamed and jumped about 3 feet away from one of my best friends. I turned around, ready to swing at whoever was there, and it took me a few beats to recognize that it wasn't a spirit covered in locks and chains there to tell me to change my ways. That it was James. "What the hell, dude?" I said, grasping at my chest. My heart felt like it was trying to run a marathon. James didn't answer me right away. He was having trouble breathing from laughing so hard. The bastard actually was on the floor laughing. I wanted to kick him, but I held back, trying to remember that I cared for the man that just tried to make my soul leave my body. Ishtar said she was hungry and asked me to come get you to see if you wanted to grab some food. I looked back at the spot that I had heard the laughter and then back to James and just nodded. I was a little hungry, and I if I was, the girls were as well. It would explain the souring moods. "You all right, man?" James asked as we headed back. "Yeah, just thought I heard something." I decided to not elaborate, and James didn't ask. The rest of the night went by pretty quickly. Once we all started to doze off, and soon enough the storm had passed and we were on our way to Billings. Once we were there, we got our bags and got our rental car, and then had to go to another area to pick up the rental RV. We didn't have a hotel to check into because we weren't going to be in Billings for longer than it took to get the giant bus-like vehicle. As soon as I had signed on the dotted line, hooked up the rental car to the trailer, and filled out the insurance information, we hit the road. The RV was more like a bus than I had expected, and there may have been a few close calls as I got to know how the steering and brakes handled. Once I got on the freeway, though, things got so much easier. Pick a lane, keep up the speed allowed, and just pay attention to the people in front of me and make sure I don't miss any of our turnoffs or freeway changes. We were on the 90 West for almost 100 miles, and with only one stop for gas, we made it to Highway 191 pretty swiftly. That was where the smooth sailing ended. We had to turn off on Swamp Creek Road and take that until it ended, and I do mean ended. It got to a point where we turned off the road onto a loosely paved side road that had nothing but dirt in every direction. Ish was in the passenger seat next to me as I slowly pulled onto it, and she looked at her phone to check the GPS. She had the same worries I did. She thought we were lost. We had to be on the road for hours, and with this last turn, we were officially off the map. It wasn't long before our self-service completely died and we lost our navigation.
What's that?
Ish asked, leaning forward as a very large and long fence stretched out into the distance on both sides of the road. That would be the point of no return, I said softly.
The what?
She asked. Nothing. It's just a fence. You said this place was a research facility, right? My guess is they have a guardhouse and a fence they had to go through.
Welcome, cool frog. Oh, that makes sense.
She sat back and looked at James and Steph, who were reading and playing a handheld game on game console, respectively.
We're almost there, guys.
The excitement in her voice could not be contained. We made our way closer and closer to the gate, and as we got near, there was indeed a small guard gate. Just a little house that had a bathroom and a sitting area for whatever guard was on duty. The glass windows were caked with dirt and grime, with large cracks and holes in it. The color wasn't much better. It looked to be a midnight blue at one point, but now it looked more faded gray from the pounding sun and lack of upkeep. I had to pull the RV to a stop, though, because the actual gate was half closed. It looked like we'd have to get out and open it ourselves if we wanted to get through. Come on, James. We got to do the man thing and open the gate, I said as I opened the door to the RV, letting in clean mountain air. James didn't sound happy to help, but we got out there and forced the chain link gate wide open. It wasn't too heavy, and the gate was on a track, so it moved pretty easily. After a few snags that we had to clear the track from rocks and weeds, we got the gate pushed wide open enough for the RV. James headed back inside, and I would have followed, but as I headed back, something caught my attention in the guardhouse. I inwardly swore at myself. I didn't understand why it had been just me recently that had seen all of the weird things. Why couldn't one of the others see it?
Where are you going?
Steph called out to me as I headed to the door. Grab a GoPro. I want to check something, I called back to her. After a few minutes, she made her way to the guard shack and stood next to me as I looked at the door. The windows were cleaner than the others, but still crusted with grime from the elements and yellowed with age. I took the camera as Stephanie handed it to me, and I turned it on as I stepped toward the door. The handle was clean, which was strange considering the condition of the rest of the wood, considering the condition that the rest of the wood was in, but that wasn't what I was looking at. How long did Creed say this place had been abandoned? I asked as I tried cleaning some of the glass.
He didn't.
She answered, moving to the front of the guardhouse.
When Ish and I looked it up, though, the report said it shut down 2 years ago.
2 years, huh?
Yeah, why?
She asked, trying to look through the filthy windows. Because I tried the handle, and shockingly, the door swung open. The power is still on here. I pointed the camera at the desk that had the desktop computer on it that had the logo of the company bouncing from one edge to the next. There were a couple of televisions that I was sure were for security, and they had small white lights blinking from the corners that implied they only needed to be switched on.
2 years later?
Steph didn't sound convinced. If you think I'm lying, come look for yourself. I was making sure the GoPro caught everything. She made her way inside and scoffed in surprise. Told you.
Maybe they're connected to the grid out here, and the main building is dead. I mean, according to what we saw on the website, this place is massive. We still have miles to go till we get to the main building.
I looked at her surprised. That was a lot of land for a technology research company. This was starting to sound too weird, and I was starting to get a really bad feeling about this. Maybe, but we drove forever on this no-name road. It's probably like Bob's Road or something.
Guess we'll find out what we get there.
IDT. Wonder what that stands for, I asked as I zoomed in on the computer monitor.
The company was called International Defense Technologies.
She shrugged.
Apparently, they were working on stuff like special defense programs for the net, like turbocharged VPNs and firewalls.
I looked at her with the sort of disbelief that former stage magicians give street performers.
Talk to your wife. She's the one who looked all this up. I'm just the messenger.
The sigh I let out let Steph know that I was starting toward that part of doubt that was going to have me questioning a lot of things for the rest of the trip. I got some more footage of the guardhouse and we headed back to the RV. I sat down and started to get us moving, and as soon as we passed the gate, I steeled myself to the prospect that this trip could possibly send us to jail for trespassing if we were caught. As we pulled up, my jaw almost hit the floor. The place was huge. The road led up to a circular driveway that surrounded a fountain that had dried up long ago. The grass around it, I was sure at one time it was well manicured, grew wild and high. I swear if I focused long enough on it, I could see wildlife moving through it. The entrance sat back behind a long covered walkway with 3 columns on either side. The initials IDT were on the glass of both of the double doors, with windows stretching to the ends on either side. I wasn't sure if this place was a research facility or some weird wellness retreat that corporations sent their teams to in order to relax and work on team building skills. The second floor looked about the same, lots of windows interspersed with industrial metal panels. Above that was the third floor, which sat back from the edge of the building, and a waist-high railing traced the edge. I could barely see the top of the building, but I could tell it was broken up into 3 smaller structures. My guess is it was where the employees went for a smoke or to relax. The way these places were usually structured was there was some fancy garden aesthetic and a walking path through and around it to help with creative thought processes, or some stupid thing like that. The tech billionaires always wanted to make things seem special or fancy for the rank and file that worked for them. To give credit where it was due, though, the building seemed pretty put together. Sure, there were a few broken windows, but other than that, the outside was clean. Does anyone else think it's odd about how clean out the outside is? James said as if reading my mind. I was just about to say that, I said as I drove around the fountain and into the black paved parking lot. I parked across 3 or 4 of the spots near the entrance and put the giant mobile home in park.
We should all get the sorry. We should get all the gear out before we take a quick walk around the building. Get some establishing shots.
Ishtar said, holding up a GoPro.
I think that's a great plan.
Steph chimed in. Gathering all the gear meant that Ishtar and Stephanie stretched their legs while James and I unloaded the light stands, camera equipment, portable gas generator, and some folding lounge chairs. By the time we were done extending the awning and setting up the travel table, and the sun was high in the clear blue sky. The mountain range was behind the building and gave a very picturesque view once we all got to the front to take a quick picture. After that, we all took a walk around the abandoned building's exterior. At first look, the IDT facility looked like a straightforward north to south facing rectangle, but as we made our way around, we saw that it was more of a U shape. Each side stretched back a good 50 yards and then dipped back in toward the front. I was proven right at this point. There was a garden landscape and a footpath, only it wasn't on the roof. It was here, nestled in the shadows of the walls of the structure. There were trees of multiple kinds and bushes that looked like they used to be shaped into hedges, but had rebelled against that once the workers left. The footpath that wove its way in and out of the flora was made of river rock, and it was dotted with stone benches that were now covered in vines and moss. This place was meant to give off a sense of tranquility, or at least it would have if it wasn't sitting in the backyard of a supposedly haunted building.
I bet this place was I bet this place was really cool and relaxing when it was being taken care of.
Ishtar mentioned as she started towards the footpath. Probably, but it seems like nature has reclaimed it, I said, looking at the light poles that were placed next to the benches. Moss and vines hung around them as if they were trying to bring them down.
No way.
Steph said, squinting at the lamp closest to her. What? I asked, looking toward what she was staring at.
The lights work. Look, they're on.
We all moved closer, and sure enough, there were halogen lights inside that were struggling to illuminate the area through yellowed glass. I looked all around the base for a hidden cord or something that would explain the lights still working 2 years after this place vacated. But there was nothing. I stood back up and grabbed the pole as I stepped up onto the bench next to it and then onto the back of it. Balancing the best I could, I searched for anything to explain it. Eureka! I exclaimed, and all three looked at me, waiting for me to explain. It's got solar panels on the top. They seem pretty clean, so that would explain how they still work. Seems like they wanted to use green energy for their meditation garden.
Well, that answers our first mystery, and we didn't even get it on camera.
Steph chuckled.
Jinkies.
Ishtar chimed in. Let's head back and have some grub. Then we can discuss what we want to do once we get inside. I'm starving, I said as I hopped down. With 3 nods of agreement, we made our way around the rest of the building and back to the RV with nothing but food on our minds. As we rounded the last corner and had the RV in sight, I looked up and aimed my phone at the top of the building. The words International Defense Technologies were emblazoned on the side in 3 different colors. Give me just a second. INE is not a word. In 3 different colors, red, blue, and then yellow. I took a couple of pictures and then caught up to the other 3, explaining that I wanted to take some stills to add to the video with some narration about our trip. They thought it was a great idea, and I sat down as Ishtar went to grab the grub. I opened my phone back up to take a look at the pictures I had taken and sat forward. There was someone in the window under the middle word, a shadow that wasn't there when I originally looked up at the logo. I swiped to the next image and the figure was still there. The third picture had the figure moving toward the right, and the fourth picture the shadow was gone. I looked back to the first picture again just to make sure I wasn't seeing things and called the others over. Homeless person, maybe? James said after looking at the pictures a couple of times.
Living out here without any food or water? I mean, I am sure they have vending machines in there, and regardless of what people say, Twinkies do have a shelf life.
Steph added after her turn with the pictures. Then what? A ghost? Shadow person? Glitch in the Matrix? I asked, handing the phone to Ishtar.
Nothing in the reports about this place said anyone died here. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be a shadow person. They can be anywhere.
Well, at least we didn't come all this way for nothing, I said as I took back the phone to look at the pictures one more time before putting my phone away to conserve battery power. Once lunch was finished, I went about setting up the gas generator and hooking up the laptop and syncing them with the GoPros. We had hoped to live stream bits of the investigation, but that wasn't going to be able to happen with the lack of any form of Wi-Fi anywhere near us. So we would have to settle for just recording things, and I could edit it all together when we got back. Wouldn't that be fun? After getting everything together, I looked up and saw that James, Stephanie, and Ishtar had all moved back to the front of the building, taking more pictures with their phones and generally just goofing around. It was actually getting late in the day, and with the sun setting on the opposite side of the building, it sent long shadows over the RV. There was that uneasy feeling again. I hated that feeling, but it had been that way every time it started to get dark around these places. It was more my nerves than any supernatural warning, so I knew I had to either ignore it or just deal with it. I looked back at the lower floor of the building and blinked. Was something glowing? I blinked again, and whatever it was had vanished. I shook my head and chalked it up to a weird reflection. It was the only explanation I had that made any sense. Ishtar came back and gave me a quick peck on the lips, and I could sense her excitement. Her eyes were bright, her smile was genuine, and her voice had a touch of laughter in it.
Almost showtime.
You sure you don't want to just kick Steph and James out of the RV and break in the bed and then get in a good night's sleep? I asked with a smirk.
Rude.
Stephanie said as she walked around the back of our temporary home.
No, Nikki, while we're on an investigation. Those are the rules. Those are dumb rules.
Ishtar commented. I don't seem to remember agreeing to those rules, I joked.
Yeah, well, those are the rules that I just made up.
What rules? James asked as he made his appearance.
They want to kick us outside and go test out the new bed. I told them they can't do that because the rules are no nookie while on investigation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good rule, James agreed. Spoil sport, I mumbled. I was only half serious anyway.
We should go set up the outside camera in the meditation garden. I have a good feeling about that place.
Ish said as she grabbed one of the brand new motion activated cameras that all those donations had bought.
Shouldn't take too long.
Steph said, and the two headed off towards the back of the building. To Stephanie's credit, it really didn't take them long, and they were on their way back just as the sun started to really dip and the sky took on the purples and reds of dusk. The time they were gone gave James and I enough time to figure out how to get into the building. This place wasn't as abandoned as it seemed to have been. This place wasn't as abandoned as it seemed to have been advertised as. Things hadn't been broken into, doors were still intact, windows were filthy and crusted in dust but not broken. The cement wasn't cracked, and more importantly, there was not a single bit of graffiti on any of the walls that we could see. Don't you think that's weird? James asked as we worked to get the door open. What? I asked. I half answered as I used a flathead screwdriver to try and pry off one of the hinges of the door on the right. How clean this place is. Yeah, but I mean, the hinge gave away and the door dropped hard onto the ground and then started to fall forward quick enough for me to have to scramble out of the way. The sound of glass shattering and metal hitting concrete echoes in the entryway. James and I just looked at each other and then at the door as if it had chosen to do that all on its own. I mean, this place is so far back from the main road, I doubt anyone would want to make the trip out. That doesn't usually happen, James said, pointing at the door. I shook my head. I barely got the hinge off. It just gave way. With that problem solved, James and I made our way around the shattered glass from the door and back to the RV. I went through making sure all the GoPro batteries and extra battery packs were fully charged, made sure the new infrared cameras were fully operational, checked and checked again that the spirit boxes were up and running, and made sure the flashlights all had fresh batteries in them. We were as ready to go as we could be. Now we just had to wait for night to actually fall and everything would be a go. After discussing who would team up, Ishtar insisted on coming with me, but that was never in question. We decided who was going to go where. James wanted to go upstairs and check out the building on the roof. That left my wife and I to check out the first floor. That was fine. I didn't feel like walking a cluttered and dark flight of stairs anyway. So after gathering gear and giving everyone a flashlight, we headed inside. Whatever we were expecting once we got inside, it definitely wasn't what we saw. You've got to be kidding me, I said as I pulled my flashlight from one side to the other.
It's
Ishtar started to say.
spotless.
Stephanie blurted out what we were all thinking. There were no toppled over chairs, no broken tables, not even scattered paper. The desk in front of us was clearly marked security with two monitors facing the back wall, two chairs that had dust covering them but were neatly tucked close to the desk. The waiting area was just as put together. There were a few plastic ferns spread around, and low sitting couches were placed between them. There were magazines organized on the table in the middle that looked weathered, but the fact that they were spread out in a fan with their titles all showing was shocking.
Did the rapture happen and we not know about it?
Stephanie said as she shone her light down the right side of the building. If it did, there would at least be clothes all over the place. This is just odd, I said, looking the other way.
Clothes all over the place?
Ishtar looked at me oddly. Yeah, supposedly when the rapture happens, it's just you that's taken. All your earthly things are left behind watches, shoes, clothes. I answered as I moved a few steps off to the left. So there are just a bunch of naked people up in heaven? James smirked. Nice. I chuckled as Ishtar and Steph just rolled their eyes. I made my way a little farther off from the group and saw a row of offices. Each one had a name of someone and their title under it. From the looks of things, the bottom floor was for show and the mucky mucks. That was usually reserved for the upper floors. I guessed IDT was more interested in showing off what they were supposed to be doing, which actually made my night easier. If the bottom floor of this was boring, we could get this over and done with quickly, call it a bust, and get back to our life back in Washington. You have no idea how much I wish that was true. James and Stephanie found the stairs to the second floor and headed up with promises to stay safe and to use the walkie-talkies if anyone got into trouble. Then it was just my wife and I. The bottom floor was dead silent, and it was that moment I remembered the red glow I had seen earlier. I turned from the stairs and looked back towards the row of offices. I took a few steps in that direction and practically shrieked when I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I wheeled around to see the beautiful face of my wife struggling as hard as she could not to laugh. "Why?" was all I could muster.
Sorry.
She said while holding back a chuckle. She cleared her throat and kissed my nose.
I'm gonna go this way. I want to check out the desks and room over this way. I think the bathrooms and employee break room are over there.
All right, I'm going to head this way. I jerked my head towards the offices. Maybe the people in the offices left wallets filled with cash.
Would be nice.
Scream if you need me, I said with a smile.
I always need you.
She then turned on her heels and headed off in the opposite direction.
Which is entirely true. At this point, I'm incapable of living on my own and functioning as a grown adult.
That's not true. You know that feeling you get late at night when you're all alone in your room, the lights are off, everything is quiet, and you can hear your own heartbeat? Most people find that peaceful, tranquil, meditative even. I find it absolutely nerve-wracking. There's this uneasiness I get when things are too calm, and it could be chalked up to a couple of things. Maybe it was my overactive imagination. I've had it since I was young, and when I closed my eyes, I could see and hear things that weren't there or weren't real. It's probably why I hate the dark so much. My own imagination would turn all those odd shapes and shadows in the dark into creatures and monsters that wanted to eat my toes or kidnap me from my bed. It's what led me to being afraid of the dark for most of my life. It could also be that I have seen horror movies that started off like this, and the dumb guy on his own dies doing something stupid like opening a puzzle box he found, or reading from a book made of human skin. I wasn't going to do either of those things. I may be of the curious sort, but I was not dumb.
I hope your tires pop.
I checked a couple of the offices, and inside were desks, a chair, bookshelves that were still filled with books of all kinds. A couple of them even had mini fridges. But as for spooky or haunted things, there was exactly zero. Creed really missed the mark on this one, and he got Ishtar and Steph hyped up for some dumb trip that was going to be a big old goose egg. It wouldn't dampen their spirits, but it would have us questioning things when we were on that long flight home. We could have used all that money for so much more than this trip. Oh well. As I was pulling open the desk drawer of As I was pulling open the desk drawer of Dr. David Jones, lead researcher and head of research and development, at least that's what the plaque on the door read, I heard the sound of footsteps. I stopped dead and looked up for the open door, half expecting to see Ishtar. But when I saw nothing, I had to steady my breath. I waited a few beats to see if I heard it again, but there was nothing but pitch black doorway and silence. Nope, was all I said as I closed the drawer. I had seen this movie before, and I wasn't going to be the first victim. I grabbed my flashlight and made my way out of the office. As I cleared the doorway, I saw a flash of red to my right. Give me a second. A flash of red to my right that led down the left hallway of the U-shaped building. I looked to the right and saw Ishtar's light bobbing about on the other end of the building. I swore under my breath and swallowed hard as I made my way to the right. The hallway was empty as I turned my lights around the corner. There were some pictures on the walls, and then there was a large metal door. Aside from the fact that the doorway took up the whole hallway was the really odd thing about it. Aside from the fact that the doorway took up the whole hallway, the really odd thing about it was that there was a keypad on it, and the keypad was lit up and bright green. The hell? I mumbled aloud. The lights in the garden in the back I could understand. Solar panels could keep those lights going until they burnt out. The guardhouse could still be hooked up to the grid with how close it was compared to the main building, but this door should be without power. I looked back to my right and saw Ishtar's light again and decided I'd be smart and call out for her. "Hey, Ish!"
What?
I heard faintly from the other side of the building. "I found this weird door. Come take a look." There was silence, and then I heard her call back.
I'll be there in a minute.
Knowing she was going to be there sooner rather than later, I made my way to the door rather quickly. There was nothing that could jump out at me from the walls, and the pictures were nothing more than landscape, so nothing unsettling there. The door, though. Maybe if I try... I grabbed the handle and tried to turn it. No luck. The doorknob didn't budge. I pushed on the door thinking maybe the locks had disengaged. Nope. The door remained shut and firm in defiance. I sighed and turned around to see if I could tell if Ishtar was on her way or not. As I turned, I heard the sound of metal scraping right behind me for a second. My legs froze and I could hear my heart in my ears. My breath was shaky as I looked down at the keypad and saw that it was glowing red. Not only that, but the door was slightly open. I could see the smallest line of black leading from the bottom of the door to the top. I swallowed hard and willed myself to turn back around. I needed to get back to Ishtar. Safety in numbers. I needed to get away from this door. I took a shaky breath and started to move forward. I heard the metal door scrape again, more this time, and the only thought in my head was to run. Run fast. Run until you get to the RV. Don't stop till you felt safe. I saw Ishtar's flashlight coming into view, and it took all I could to yell, "Run!" Thank you, Facebook. Then I felt it. A hand grabbed me by my arm and pulled me back. It yanked me off my feet, and as I fell through the metal door, It yanked me off my feet as I fell through the metal door. Then I saw the light from my wife. As I saw the light from my wife, the door closed, and in the darkness I saw two red, glowing eyes. End of chapter 3.
End of chapter 3.
And
That's it for now.
that would be it for now.
Apparently, my swearing at the guy in the obnoxious car got some laughs.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, that is the first 3 chapters of the Paranormal Northwest Archives, Wanted Dead or Alive, written by me. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for sticking around. I know it's been forever since I have streamed anything. I honestly, like I said, I asked you guys in the Discord. Y'all said you wanted a a video or live stream. So, like I said, please, I am open to honest criticism and critique, and I want you guys to understand this is something that I'm planning on attempting to get published. Whether I have to self-publish it or I actually get a publishing house publishing it, this is something I want to accomplish. I have plans for more, but as of right now, this is where we are. So any comments or any critiques or anything like that, please leave in the comments down below from this stream. And thank you again. Thank you again for listening. And maybe we'll do this again um, soon and read through 4 to 6. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. What did you think, Ish?
You need to use commas more.
I use plenty of commas.
We'll discuss your grammar off stream.
So thank you guys.
Tom says it needs more nose kisses. I agree. I give him nose kisses all the time at home.
All right, ladies and germs. Thank you very much for joining us, and Ishtar, thank you again for joining me and doing this. I know you didn't have much to do, but you know we got to save your voice for your actual narration job that you got. Um, so
Books.
So, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.